Welcome to this week's roundup of news and polls from Ipsos MORI. And today, as new rules come in on face masks, we've got 9 out of 10 Britons who think it's essential to wear them in public in order to stop the spread of the coronavirus. So strong support for government policy. And indeed, nearly 7 in 10 people support making it the law to wear a face mask in shops. And only 16% are opposed. So you may have seen lots of fuss and bother about our liberties being taken away on social media. But overall, the public seems pretty supportive of this, as they were of the government's stay-at-home message previously. And we only have 15% of the public now who say they're unlikely to wear a face mask in public in the near future. And some of those will be people, of course, who don't go out at all. And that's down from 51% back in April. So a real move in favour of face masks. We'll see if they are actually wearing them in the next few days. But in general, they are supportive of any measure to try and contain the disease. And the only challenge, I think, for the economy is that there isn't much sign that the public think that wearing a face mask is going to make it much more attractive to go shopping. We've got 25% who will say it'll make it more likely to go shopping, 21% actually less likely. And although there's been a boom in retail sales in June, as we bounce back, a lot of that is actually driven by a shift to online shopping. Overall, then, as the country starts to break up for some sort of summer holiday, the most popular politician in Britain continues to be the man with the money, Rishi Sunak. And 48% of us say we're favourable to him. And that's ahead of Boris Johnson, who's pretty divisive. 41% of us say we're favourable to the Prime Minister, but 42% unfavourable. But he does better at the moment than Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, who has only a third of people who say they're favourable to him. Slightly more than are unfavourable, 29%, but a lot of people yet to make up their minds. And the month-on-month rise in ratings of the leader of the opposition that we've seen at the start of this year have now stopped. And so with Labour behind in the polls, this is an interesting sort of turning point to see what happens next. Overall, then, where are the British public? One of the things that, of course, shows that Britain is quite a challenging country to run is that the British don't see themselves as either particularly left-wing or right-wing or particularly centrist. A quarter of us say our politics are left-wing, another quarter say we're right-wing, and a third are sitting in the middle. When we look at our politicians, though, 60% say that Boris Johnson is right-wing, and only 12% think he's in the centre. 49% Keir Starmer, slightly more, 17%, compared to Boris Johnson, say he's in the centre. And the Conservatives are seen as right-wing, Labour, 57%, left-wing. Overall, the Lib Dems, in one way, come closest to reflecting political views in Britain. 12% of us think they're right-wing, 33% they're in the centre, and 27% left-wing. But just shows that doesn't necessarily, people's views on left-wing and right-wing don't necessarily accord exactly with how they vote, because, of course, they also vote on policies, and they also vote on the personality and characteristics of the leader of each party. And what I find particularly interesting in this chart is the 8% of people who regard Boris Johnson as left-wing and the 9% of people who regard Keir Starmer as right-wing. And they must be, in the first case, I suspect, Nigel Farage-type Farageist supporters who see Boris Johnson as far too left-wing, and perhaps Corbynites, on the other hand, who regard Mr Starmer as far too right-wing. But it just shows there's no pleasing some people. Overall, then, those who regard themselves as right-wing are most likely to be favourable to the Prime Minister, 76%. But interestingly, 10% of left-wingers say they're favourable to the Prime Minister. And personality does matter in politics. When we look now to the economy, the British public are pretty pessimistic about what's going on. 46% say things are heading in the wrong direction. The government is borrowing record amounts of money. But perhaps we should just keep this in context. The public are usually pessimistic about the direction of the country. And so the fact that we've got 46% saying it's going in the wrong direction, that's only a slight increase from January, before the virus had even hit and opinion had started shifting rapidly. We're generally pessimists in Britain, so let's just hope we're wrong this time. And overall, as the government talks about the need to build, we find that MPs absolutely back investment in infrastructure, although in the research that we did earlier this year, we found that their priorities are quite different to those of the public. MPs prioritise rail and digital infrastructure, whereas interestingly, the public is prioritising green investments. They're particularly interested in things like solar energy, even though it's not that sunny. But that just shows that, the concern about the environment is still there. And when we asked people recently about how the government should rebuild, there's a real interest in making sure that investments are going into green infrastructure of various sorts, although you might include electrified rail as part of that. So we'll keep tracking what's happening on public attitudes to infrastructure. I think how we rebuild this economy, of course, is hugely important to every single one of us. And then finally, with all of the discussion about human rights and diversity and inclusion this year, we've now looked at attitudes to transgender people. And we found that although 7 out of 10 people in Britain think that transgender people face discrimination, only a minority of us feel that transgender rights ought to go further. So most people are sort of happy to keep things as they are. And we'll see how that debate goes. But it's one that, of course, is highly polarised. We're going to keep exploring diversity in the UK with our new UK employee diversity survey that we're doing with Dial Global and other partners like Stonewall, the Centre for Ageing Better and the Disability Forum, looking at actual employment practices in some of the largest employers in Britain. We will announce the results of that later this year, so please look out for that. If you want to keep a track on public opinion in the COVID-19 epidemic, do look at our tracker and other data, which we publish almost daily. And I've just shown you the page you can bookmark here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all for now. I am going on holiday and I will talk to you again in early August. Thank you.